Welcome to our unique financial channel. Folks, there's nothing really else like it on YouTube. We set up spreadsheets and we show you all kinds of different financial concepts. In this video, we're going to cover all of these: sequence of returns risk, the importance of your asset allocation, the impact inflation can have on your nest egg, the relevance of the 4% withdrawal rate, and how Social Security can impact your financial planning. So we're basically going to look at somebody that's reached retirement, wants to know if they have enough, and let's go ahead and run some numbers. Please consider subscribing and sharing this channel with others. I think when you see these numbers and what these spreadsheets can do for you, you will simply be amazed. Let's go ahead and uh, look at the numbers here. Let's say, for example, somebody has 750,000 saved up. That's the beginning balance. Let's say they figure they need 4,500 a month. 1,500 for living expenses. That would be $54,000 a year. Now, I want to give them a 3% COLA, so that's 4,500, and the next year 3% more, and so on, going down through here. We also want to do a 60-40 asset allocation, meaning 60% stay in the S&P 500 because you want to have enough in there so you can benefit from these kind of returns to beat inflation, but you also want to have a cash reserve account, a liquid account over here. So when we do have those down years that inevitably come, right here are the returns we actually use, the S&P 500 returns for the last 100 years. Every so often we get some down years. Sometimes we can get consecutive down years. So we want to run the numbers looking at that case. So what happens when you have a down year? You don't want to take this money out by the fifth year here. We use 1925 numbers. Of course, going down through here, we're going to realize none of the returns going forward are going to be the same. But you don't want to take this 60,000 out of a market that's already going down. You don't want to be a forced seller in a down market. You don't want to sell when the market's going down because that would knock this down even further. You want to have some kind of a liquid account over here. So we're going to have 40% going over there of this 750,000. That'd be 300,000 going down through it. And we're going to just have that going at 3% a year. We could change this to any numbers you want, but that's the your asset allocation so that when the market's going down, you're taking the money out of this instead of that. What else are we going to look at? We're going to go ahead and run the numbers now for every single year to see where somebody might be. Now, the one thing we haven't taken into account is Social Security, because right now we're at a way too high of a withdrawal rate. We're at 7.2%. The recommended amount over the decades has always been 4% or thereabouts. If you're up at 7.2%, you're going to have problems when you start out with these down years. They call that sequence of returns risk. When you first retire and you have these years, let's go ahead and do 1929 years. You will have these. We had 4 down years right off the bat. You'd be out of money in 10 years given this scenario. But we have not taken into account another situation here. If you're taking Social Security from day one, if you're 62 years old, and you open up your statement and it says at age 67 you're going to get 1975. Now again, we're talking about a 62-year-old, so you're not going to get 1975. Your Social Security statement says that's where you're going to get at age 67. If you take it earlier, you get 70% of that. So you're going to get 1383. Watch how these numbers change. We're going to say you're going to take that the very first year, the 1383. You no longer need 4,500 from your nest egg. You only need 3,117, which is this minus this, which means you have a 4.99% withdrawal rate now instead of that 7.2, a lot closer to the 4% withdrawal rule that people have used for decades. I'm going to go ahead and update this, see if there's any other numbers I need to change here while it's doing its calculations here. Again, this is going to tell us what's left after 10, 20, and 30 years after each of these years. Again, the returns going forward aren't going to be identical to any of these, but they can give us a good idea. The worst case scenario for like 1929 and so on going forward. Looks like 95% of the time after 20 years, you would have money left. And not only that, look at the graph, folks. This is the actual graph. The only time we have issues is 1929, around 1929. And also around the year 2000, but look at all these other numbers, folks. Remember, you're starting out with 750,000. This is the $1 million line. This is the $2 million line. So if when you first retire, you have some really good returns, you don't have these down years. Like here, we had 4 good years before we hit the down years. This is a summary box of 1925 numbers. Look at this, folks, how much you'd have after each of these time periods. Remember, starting out with 750,000, taking out 4,500 a month, and taking into account Social Security. Only 5% of the time do you have any kind of problems, but you need to kind of plan on that in case we do have, especially if we have something as recently as what we had in the last 25 years, these 3 down years, and then this right here. Some people say don't worry about the depression years, but even as recently as this decade, you would have had problems. Again, what does the graph show? Running out of money in the year 2000 if you kept to these numbers. Let's go ahead and show you those numbers real quick. That's the only time in the last 100 years, the depression years and around the year 2000. That's why it's so beneficial to actually run the numbers here. You can see right now you're running out of money in 18 years because you have 3 down years when you first retire. Uh, that's when you would have an issue with the 60-40 split. But let's do it. Let's do some other things. This should show you what we can do with this spreadsheet to help show you what might happen. If you first retire and you have these down years, you really want to stay on top of it. So what could you do differently and not, cut back way to like $4,000 a month? Because yeah, you could do that, but even then you'd be running out of money in just over 20 years using 2000 numbers. But you've already figured you need 4,500. So let's say, what can you do differently just in case we have returns like this? So one thing you could do is what's called, instead of taking a 3% COLA, the year after you have a down market, take a little bit less than, don't go up by 3%, actually go down by 2%. We're just going to click right here. 5% difference. Instead of 3% going up, it's going to go down 2%. That's called a negative COLA. We can change these numbers any way you want. But that would probably be the least painful time. And if we did that, would that help in the year 2000? Actually, what did it do? Let me go back up here. Right now, you're running out of money in 18 years. If you just went to have a negative COLA those first years, and then your money's lasting, you have 145,000. Let's go down here and see when you actually are running out of money. After 24 years, if we had returns like so, that would help from running out of money in 18 years to lasting 24 years. Again, if you're 62 years old, that gets you to age 86. Again, folks, this is very rare to have consecutive down years. But if you first retire and you have some down years, you need to do something to mitigate this so your nest egg doesn't drop too fast. Again, you could go to 4,200, and you see you have money. These are using the 2000 numbers, and you would be okay. After 25 years, you'd have 82,000 left. It hasn't been 30 years since the year 2000, but see what you might have to do if you have these first down years that are negative like this. But most of the time, folks, again, look at these numbers. Most of the time, you're going to have plenty of money. In fact, it's going to be growing. In fact, you could take out more than this 4.99%, especially when you take into account what Social Security is doing for you. But just to run these numbers, let's just say you wanted to wait from age 62 to age 65 before you start taking Social Security. Let's go ahead and do that. Age 65, Social Security. You take it at age 65. What does that mean? That means this 1975 that's on your Social Security statement when you first retire, that's going to grow. You always need to take that into account. And that's what we like to do on our spreadsheets. That's going to grow by whatever the COLA is. We're going to go ahead and run the 2.5%. Okay, so that's going to grow over the next from age 62 to age 65, which is 3 years later. This 1975 will have grown to 2127. Also, since you're taking it at age 65, you're not going to get this, what you're getting at 62. You're waiting, so you're going to get 1843. Let's see how that might change this. 1843. Look at that, folks. Just waiting those few extra years. If we had returns like the year 2000, you actually don't run out of money. You have 28,000 after age 25. Now, again, what did we do? We changed it from taking this in the first year, then you're running out of money in just over, let's see, what was it, 24 years we said? But if you wait to take Social Security because you're getting more, what did we say we were getting here? You're actually going to get 23% more by waiting to age 65. This 1975 would have grown to this amount, and you're going to get, there's age 67 again. This is always age 67s, and you're taking age 65, you're going to get 1843, which is 23.8% more. That's how we come up with the numbers that we did in this right here. And what was it again? I keep forgetting. 1843. And look at the difference it makes. Again, folks, we're talking about such a rare occasion where we have down years, but since it's happened in the last 25 years, I want to take that into account. And folks, look at that. Even if we had returns negative like the year 2000, you'd be in just fine shape. You have 28,000 left. Yeah, it'd be getting really low. But again, if you're 62, that gets you to age 87. Obviously, if you took this a little bit less, this is going to be 224,000. See the difference that $200 makes? But again, we're looking at the worst case scenario. Most times you're going to be just fine with these numbers that we've looked at. It's just during the Depression years and around the year 2000. All these other years, you're going to have all kinds of money left. You could obviously take out more money. Just monitor what's going on those first few years. That's how we've set these spreadsheets up, just to run numbers for you, just to show you where you might be. Again, we were looking at a 60-40 asset allocation, but notice the difference. If you wait till the fourth year, those first 3 years, you're taking out 7.2% of your nest egg. But then once the Social Security kicks in the fourth year, now you're down below the 4% rule, which is what everybody likes to shoot for, that 4% rule, because it's worked over and over and over again. Let me just update this real quick to see what the numbers look like. Right now, we got a 5% failure rate before we decided to take Social Security. A few years later, so you got more. It may not change much because these were such down years. No, it did. Look at that. 0% of the time, you'd run out of money just waiting to take Social Security. Isn't that interesting? You wait to take Social Security and you get 23.8% more than what you would have gotten if you took it at age 62. Even though you're withdrawing those first 3 years, this 4,500, once Social Security kicks in, you're only withdrawing 24.79. But that's what we do on this channel. We run all kinds of different numbers just to show you where you might be, when you want to take Social Security, what your asset allocation is, what kind of COLA you want to do, and also after negative years, go ahead and take a 2% negative COLA in those years and look at how the numbers work out for you. Even when you start out with 3 down years like this, when the sequence of returns go against you when you first retire, if that happens, again, that's very rare, folks. It happened right here, and it happened a little bit right there, and it happened right there. Most times you're just fine, as we've seen the graph here. Look at these numbers. That's the kind of amounts you would have. This is the 20-year graph, by the way. But that's what we love to do on this channel. Please consider subscribing. Please share this channel with others. Let them know there's a channel out there that'll cover concepts like this and show you how they would actually work out using 100 years worth of data. Thanks so much for watching.